Betrayal! What? Betrayal! Betrayed me!
Can't wait until people start getting in here. Yeah, okay. I can't wait until people get in here. This is going to be a great freaking stream. And this was completely random. Boobity boom, and get that. I'm working on what if Casey Becker survived while we wait for people to get in and we just have a good time. It would be awesome. Oh, there's a reason. If you really put your mind to it. And if you paid attention to the description of my stream. Hi, King of Portals. That's people. Okay, that's a good place to stop. I was working on a little bit of what if Casey Becker survived. But yeah, it's a pretty good place to stop unless I think of more. For those of you who are on here and didn't guess why I'm doing this, just let it sink in for a second. No, I'm totally doing it because Lori is totally the best character. Yeah, maybe in another universe. Uh, oh, well, that's fun. That's what you call. You know what you know what you call that? You know what you call that?
Betrayal! What? Betrayal! Betrayed me!
That's what you call that. Hey, you can't expect everyone to be smart. Mm-hmm. So, who wants to talk about Lori since that is what the stream's about? Maybe finally touch upon like her true freaking persona and what makes her truly insufferable as a character. I'd love to talk about that. No, 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 no. We're going to talk about her because she's the best character in The Walking Dead. She's totally like the greatest character to ever come across a TV platform. Ah, she's the freaking best. Yeah, this is more or less for April Fools and to just freaking joke around and like I already joked on Discord with leaving YouTube, but I wanted to do something better. And joking that Lori's the best character and making a stream about it is what to do. Now I'm going to be gone for quite a minute because I'm eating dinner, but I will return. So anybody who's coming in here or you guys that are here, just tell them that I'll be back soon. We'll be on the stream for quite a bit. Okay? Alright, guys, I am back. Anybody here? Wanted to talk about Lori and joke around, but I just think I should cancel the April Fool's stream. Yep. What we're basically doing in this stream is the opposite of what it says. We're covering how awful Lori Grimes is. Now, let me simply find something real quick because it's important. Okay, shut up past me. That video right there is my old retrospective on Lori before I made the What If Lori Survived. This is going to be a rebranded version of it since it's April Fool's, and I figured, why the frick not? And we can just chill and have fun. As for Tina being GOAT, who the frick knows? We're going to wait for some people, and then we're probably going to get started because I had to leave for dinner. That's why we didn't start earlier. All-out war? Against who? Just put the link as the main thing. So that way you guys can go back and watch that old retrospective. I wonder where King Devin and everybody else is. I guess they just didn't expect me to stream today. I didn't either. I'm doing this just simply for the joke of it, and because why the frick not? Especially since we ain't gonna be doing the ones who live anymore. Why are you guys having all-out war? Like, what the frick's going on? Oh, so you're not against each other. You're just going against other people who banned you. Okay. That actually. Um. Okay. That's cool. Everybody comment Lori is trash, and we're gonna try and fricking like trend it. Let's try and trend and like make this monumental for showing how much Lori is trash. And let's try and make an abbreviation for trash, especially for Lori. Wait till you guys see what I'm typing. This is the abbreviation for frickin' trash to describe Lori. Wonder where Tina went. And Riley is now in the place. So let me make a proper intro for the people here and just in general for the stream. What's up, everybody? It is Nick here, and we are doing an April Fool's stream about Lori, yada, 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 and you guys get the rest. Let us get into the new retrospective of Lori freaking Grimes. Let's cue some awesome music. We're gonna cue some freaking like an epic intro music.
Please allocate your attributes.
Shut up for a second, please.
And only Charles Dickens.
All right, here we go. I say that should be made into an intro. Anybody who wants that music to be made in a future intro, please let me know, because I will totally do that. So, who votes that I should put that as future music for an intro? Because I say that's pretty freaking sick. It's from a guy named David Popovich, aka the Bookworm, and he does Bookworm reviews. He stopped 3 years ago. He moved on to other things. All right, intro, Bookworm, music, but not his intro, just the music. I don't even think it's his music. I think he just borrowed it. But yeah, definitely should make that. So, Sophia, you showed up here. We are basically doing an April Fool's stream. I pulled a Discord April Fool's on everybody thinking I was quitting YouTube. And then while I was doing What If Casey Becker Survived, which I did a little bit of at the start of the stream, I decided to do a stream dedicated to my new retrospective on Lori. The link in this little title here you see and in the chat is my old retrospective on Lori, if you saw that or not. It was before I made What If Lori Survived, before half of you even appeared on the channel, and yeah. So we're basically doing a new retrospective on it, and we're about to start here because I had to go eat and I had to figure other stuff out. So, do I even need to tell you that I don't like this character? Like, if there was any other character to hate in any other show or movie-based franchise, Lori would ultimately take the cake. Didn't know that existed? What you mean? Didn't know what existed. Well, a lot more. So, how about we just all air out our grievances on freaking Lori? Really lay out the film. Really get our feelings out to like her and her character. I'll allow it, but just this once. Well, don't get too carried away with the swearing, all right? It's all right. I said I'll allow just this once, but don't get too ahead of yourselves, all right? Try to keep it friendly on here, you know? But anyways, now we're gonna get serious. This is Lori, as she is one of the most insufferable characters in a universe at all. An awkward freaking woman of the year who was, by all accounts, only good for saving Beth's life, being with Rick, and spawning Judith, and ultimately the sad death of Carl. The problem is, she is just an insufferable wretch that really makes me wish that Rick had gotten with someone like Jesse or Michonne sooner. Like the Rick and Michonne relationship should have happened in freaking season 4 or 5. Yet they made Rick have to take longer to fully develop as a character and get someone who actually freaking cares about him. I could go on. Lori, while not being the root and cause of problems in The Walking Dead, she is one of the main things that makes The Walking Dead terrible. And I have so many more reasons now. Along with that link where I discuss many of the reasons, I'm going to go into full depth and explain them all to you. There are thousands of reasons why I hate this character. Number 1, her sleeping with Shane on regular occasion, which had its reasons, but it just didn't work. Like, I compared Lori to Chi-Chi in a lot of ways from Dragon Ball, but Chi-Chi, honestly, is much better than Lori. While being comparable, the two of them, think about it. They both make their kids do studies in a time of crises. They both, I'm trying to think. They both make their kids study during a time of crises. They both are against any sort of defense or training, and they are just both terribly insufferable women. But Chi-Chi is better on one occasion. Just one. Chi-Chi never slept with another dude after Goku died. She named the next kid after him. Well, didn't name Goten after Goku. Kept with the Go, but she literally shaped Goten in Goku's image. And Michonne did the exact same thing with RJ, which makes Michonne and Chi-Chi thousands of times better than this ruffian who literally could not be any freaking worse of a character. I don't know how anyone could look through The Walking Dead as a franchise without wanting to throw shade in Lori 700 different directions. And like I said, the only good things about her is she saved Beth's life until season 5, which then she died. So saved her for like 3 seasons. And then Andrea got to put her in her place, which is more on Andrea's behalf. And then her being with Rick and somehow redeeming herself before she died. But trust me, as the owner here and as a person who can literally prove it to you, Lori is nothing more than a skank. The Walking Dead does not deserve Lori. If anything, in the comics, Judith should have lived. And I'm glad she did in the show. Because, let's be real here, Lori should have gotten a worse death or died alone in the comics. And as for the show, she should have just gotten a worse death. And I could go on and on. I could go on for thousands. The Rick and Shane thing, she literally pinned them against each other like the entire time. For 1 minute, she's on Shane's side. Then Rick comes back and she's against him. And then it seemingly is just with Rick for the time being. And then especially at the CDC, Shane literally tries to rape Lori. And somehow, some way, in that stupid mind of hers, she doesn't think to tell Rick. Like, for real. For real. Like, why? Why would you... I don't care if you were sleeping with Shane for a month, or a year, or 2 years, or a week. Your husband came back. Your old lover tried to literally rape you in the CDC. And tried to kill Rick several times. And yet for some stupid, unadulterated, pathetic, inborn, low-class, insignificant reason, she still didn't tell Rick. Even after Shane died. And then she's like, oh, why is my son and my husband mad at me? Oh, please pity me. And this... I cannot describe in more ways than one how completely insufferable Lori is as a character. You ever wonder why Rick and Carl took so long to develop as true characters? Lori is your answer. Lori is your answer. If there was one person, one single surefire person that ruined the development of Rick and Carl as characters, and what most likely killed Carl as a character, is the fact that Lori was there. That was the one surefire thing that made Lori the most insufferable character of all time. I have never in my entire life, and this is the truth, hated a character in a show or a movie or video game as much as I hated Lori. Chi-Chi, she came really close, and she still kind of does. But then I get into The Walking Dead and start watching it over 4 times as of recently. But yeah, never in all my years did I hate a character as much as I've hated Lori Grimes. But bet you guys are wondering, if Nick hates Lori Grimes so god dang much, if he hates her so much, then why did Nick make a series about her and then put it all into a movie, and then after that make her survive in almost every other story that came after, and is going to have more stories of her coming after? That's a good question. And for those of you who don't know, let me reiterate. See, I found ways, basically, to make her better as a character. To make her not insufferable and actually do something with her. Because the link you see right there in the chat for my old retrospective before I made the Lori Survived series over a year ago, I did not want to do it at all. I never wanted to do a Lori video, ever. Because I hated her, even if I knew way less back then than I do now. I still hated her with every fiber of my being. It just took me longer to realize how much I hated her. And Merle's redemption factor paid more off than hers. And I'll get on that in a second. Yeah, I bet you guys are going to be questioning that, and I'll tell you. See, Merle's redemption factor played off more than Lori's redemption factor, because Merle, even he did way less. Sure, he brought Glenn and Maggie to the governor, and Merle beat the living tar out of Glenn and almost killed him, and brought him to the Maggie to the governor, who, basically humiliated her. It wasn't as insufferable as Lori's actions. There are bad characters in The Walking Dead, don't get me wrong. There are plenty of awful characters. But Andrea is the second closest by default to Lori. Especially for The Walking Dead. I think we can all agree that Lori Grimes is the bane of The Walking Dead's and all of our existences. Every single other person in The Walking Dead and so on are much more standable than her by thousands of folds. And I dare someone in the future, or what have you, to tell me different. Because there is not one redeeming factor about this woman. Not a one. You know, if she wasn't the original wife of Rick, and if she wasn't the original wife of Rick and didn't try to save Beth's life and didn't try, at least in the end, to be nice again to Rick and Carl, she would be beyond first place. She would be like, if there's a higher place, like, or a better place than first place to take the case of like the most hated character in a freaking show, you could put Lori in that little arrow if that stuff wasn't part of her character. I mean, if you think about it, Lori caused almost everything between season 1 through 3 to happen. She stopped Rick and Carl from doing so much. She pinned Rick and Shane against each other and just continued on, suffice it to say, with being a waste of an entire character. And honestly, Judith isn't even Rick's kid. It's Lori and Shane's by blood. So if you really want to go ahead and say that, that's one more redeeming factor. That, you know what? Okay, I lied. There are redeeming factors about Lori, just none tied to her character specifically. Besides trying to save Beth's life, that's like the only one. But spawning Judith is not related to her character. That's just something that happened out of like nowhere. That was just because Rick was presumed dead. And let's be honest, I bet you since Rick had survived from that and literally had been through so much during the apocalypse until the end of The Ones Who Live, I guarantee you that he must have had at least one or two more life instances where he almost died before The Walking Dead proved to us who Rick Grimes was. And if that was the case and Lori didn't act that way beforehand, The Walking Dead just made it so that way she would. Which I get, it's a zombie apocalypse. But I just feel that she took things too far. And if there's one thing that makes me really mad about her, is that she didn't tell Rick, especially about the CDC incident. Yeah, you were with Shane after you thought your husband was dead, but even if Shane was a boyfriend or lover or like new kind of love interest, so to speak, that doesn't excuse the fact that he literally assaulted you, or he did what the governor almost did to Maggie, basically. So that ultimately means that Shane, in a way, was worse than the governor because he took it a little bit too far. Like, God, Lori is pretentious. And she deluded herself by thinking that she was right half the time, even though she wasn't. Like, for example, she tells people, oh, Carl, stay in my eyesight, even though I am just off in the woods spreading my legs to Shane in the wild, and telling other people to take care of Carl while she's going ahead and doing that or whatever. And then when we get to Herschel's farm, she wanted to go ahead and act like the know-it-all, and that everyone was in the 1840s with the women doing all the hard labor and everything. And I'm glad, that actually cemented. By that point, I started to hate Andrea and Lori, I think, around the same level. I can't predict how my thought process was around that time when I first watched The Walking Dead and then watched it a second time. But I could tell you one thing. Lori and Andrea around that point were tied in the angles of being the most hated characters. But Andrea talking to Lori the way she did, that actually made her a better character. But she's still second place. And I could go on without Andrea, but I digress. I still did stuff with Lori, and I still am going to. That just goes to show the level of patience that a human being can have. If you hate a character so god dang much and are willing to change the approach and direct role of that character for popularity or to show that there's a different side of that character, I say that makes that person a freaking skilled freaking guy. And I'm not going to, preach to myself that much. But, hey, I pretty much gave all the right answers for, the fact that even though Lori is insufferable, yes, there are ways to make even the most insufferable character likable. Because think about it this way. Think about how Negan was. He was a monster. He lost Lucille to cancer, and then she killed herself and everything like that. And then he became a bad guy, wrapped the bat in barbed wire, became a literal guy who killed Glenn and Abraham and almost broke Rick and them to completion for 2 seasons. And it all culminated to Rick deciding to let him go, all over a technicality of his son dying, which in the end proved Negan actually changed in the end. And the only person that hates him now is Maggie. And even she's beginning to let up on that because of Herschel Jr. My point is, Lori, while being a very, very, very bad character, I was still able to do something with her. And I think that deserves a little bit of applause right there. But yeah, the point of the stream and more or less the entire April Fool's joke of today was to find some good in her overall while joking like a friggin' ton about how insufferable she is more than not. And I also always say never whenever it comes to doing something. Sure, you can think that you're not going to do something, or you can think that something's not going to happen, but it doesn't mean that it's not going to happen. What I mean by that is, I never thought that I'd make a What If Lori Survived, and I did. I never thought I'd make Lori a good character, and I did. I didn't think that I'd literally dedicate an April Fool's video or stream to this character, and I have. But yeah, doesn't change the fact. That doesn't change the fact that Lori, and I haven't even gotten into the big stuff that makes her like a truly bad character. Besides not telling, I still haven't even gone into the full detail of that situation. Not telling Rick about the CDC. Like, she didn't interact. Like, here is, okay. So let me culminate it like this for you guys. So, if you guys were to sit down and ask me, hey, Nick, what is the number one thing, like the surefire number one thing that you hate about Lori Grimes? If you could name just one thing, what would it be? And I'm going to tell you. So, Lori didn't interact with Rick like she realistically should have. Like, for real. Rick was your husband, okay? Your literal soulmate. And the second that he is supposedly dead, and Shane and her getting mad at him for supposedly lying, you still freaking side with him. And it's like, there's so many technicalities with that Lori can't all be in the wrong. And Lori and Shane are more or less, if anything, I would say that Shane is the one who made Lori more insufferable because of what happened after Rick supposedly died. But I can't say that. I can't say that because Shane and Rick were talking before the apocalypse even started, before Rick even got shot. They were talking, and Rick and Lori had already gotten into stuff before, and like stuff like that. So to say that Shane was wrong or made Lori the way she was would be a lie. He, while being partly responsible, was definitely not responsible for the way that she acted. If anything, Lori killed Shane. So technically, I don't even need to do a what if on what if Lori killed Shane, even though some of you recommended it. And there's only one reason why I'm probably going to cancel that what if. And you guys are thinking like, what? Why are you going to cancel a what if now because of all this? Well, because think about it this way. How much Lori turned Rick and Shane against each other. How she sided with Shane after she literally got freaking assaulted by him. And the way that he acted towards her. She ultimately never stayed away from him or told Rick about him. She only told Rick that Shane was unsure about Rick's leadership and thinking that the baby was his. That is all she literally told him. And the fact that she didn't feel it right to tell her husband about the problem? Like, I'm sorry. Like, how in the frick are you going to side with someone that literally assaulted you, tried to kill your husband multitudes of times, and literally tried to lead the group and bust open the barn and did all that. And she still sided with him. Like, Rick realistically should have snapped at her more than she did. And the only time that he snapped at her was when she tried to kill Judith. And I get that Judith originally died in the comics to a gunshot or whatever, and Lori and Judith both died. That deserved way worse, by the way, than a simple gunshot. But just the utter fact that Lori's death was handled so poorly and that Rick didn't snap at her more shows Rick's level of patience when it came to her. And, like, let me tell you this right now. If I was in a relationship with Lori, I would have dumped her at the first freaking opportunity. Like, no lies. Rick did not deserve this woman for 3 dang seasons. If anything, Rick's love life up till season 6 was handled so poorly. You wonder why he turned into a murderous brute, and literally the guy that he is today is because of her. Because of her. And while that is a good thing, because we got a freaking brute Rick Grimes who bit Joe's throat out, slashed Gareth's neck with the machete, slashed Tomas with the machete before Lori even died, mind you, and became the guy he was, it doesn't excuse the fact that however epic that made Rick Grimes be, we all know that it wasn't all good. Rick didn't want to be that way. Shane and Lori made him that way. And the only reason that Shane made him that way is because Lori spewed venom down both their throats. And that's why overall I made the freaking what if Rick never got into a coma, because that actually shows Rick and Shane getting along. Hold that thought for 1 sec, guys. What?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. The stuff that was in there last night, only twice. No, I'm back. Just had to figure something out real quick. Uh, but yeah, what part of Lori was I talking about? Oh, right. Her and like Shane and Rick and everything. So basically, what I was trying to get at with that particular part of the talk here was Lori's communication with her husband, mind you, for the 50th time, was horrible. It was horrible. Like, you would think that after Rick literally comes back from the dead, right? And tries to make things ultimately better and does this, that, and the other thing, and is leading the group and everything and does good by it, even if people die, you would think that that would make Lori not be as insufferable as she was. In theory, the only person that she should have ever been mad at was Shane. And those are for reasons I already discussed. Assaulting her at the CDC, not staying away from her, being a predator, and not seeming to get it. And she sits there and blames Rick, Carl, Andrea, Daryl, and every other big character. Like, why? What part of your deluded mind thinks that it's their faults? Like, and I only mentioned all those people because she had arguments with all of them. And here's another thing. Remember in season 1, for those of you who care to remember, Jim, whenever he was tied up at the tree after, digging the holes and everybody thinking he was a loony? Well, remember when he said specifically to Lori, you keep that boy close and you never let him out of your sight? Even after that freaking line, she ignored it. Like, bravo, Lori Grimes. You are parent and freaking wife of the year. And even she started to pick it up in season 3 before her demise, which could have been a lot more gruesome because that's what she freaking deserved. She even knew that she was not a good freaking wife or mother at all. And I'm glad that Judith got Rick and Michonne, and like Carl got Rick and Michonne after season 6 pretty much. So he didn't even get to be around Rick and Michonne as a couple for long before he ended up dying. And Judith and RJ, as for them, they actually got parents who they deserve. Shane ultimately would be better of a character if he was not a creep, a predator, pretty much, and wasn't so far ahead of his game. Because that was the main issue with Shane, is that he was way too far ahead of everybody else, and they all attacked him for it. And just for the record, I didn't think that I would hate Lori. Like, legit. I literally thought that with our seemingly main character, when I started watching the show, that she was going to be a good character too. Like, she was going to be like one of the big ones. And heck, even though I knew nothing about it at the time, she could have been living to the end and have a spin-off with Rick. I didn't think that far, but you would have assumed that that would have been the case. But to see it drag out of proportion through seasons 1 through 3 because of Lori, like, the story just ultimately fell apart at that point. Like, Rick and Carl couldn't go anywhere without getting harassed, and Carl couldn't be a better person in the group. Anytime he would try and help, Lori would either A, tell him to go and study, or B, that he was being too dangerous. And I get it, he got shot, and his father got shot. But they both came out of it, and, you know, you think Lori would understand the durability of the Grimes family. Too bad she didn't get that specific little factor, and I'm glad that Lori didn't get that factor. Because let's be honest, if she had remained the way she was as a character, and she had the Grimes' seemingly unstoppable immortality, and I'm including Carl in that ratio because he did live for 8 seasons, and in the comics he lived like for good. And true, Rick died at the end too, and Judith, but I'm just sharing very still comparisons between both of them. And it is accurate, I'm not gonna lie. What I'm saying is, you think that she would notice that level of durability with Rick and Carl, and that she would appreciate them more. She didn't even care. The most that she cared about was, I can't even begin to describe what Lori Grimes actually cared about. To be honest, I don't even think she cared about herself. If she was willing to kill her own baby and risk Glenn and Maggie's lives, that's another thing. She risked both of their lives for pills that she ultimately ended up throwing up. So that whole run was all for nothing. And the list just keeps going on and on and on and on and on and on and on, like a broken freaking record. She talked to Shane probably more than she talked to her own husband. Like, don't talk to the Predator and the guy who's way ahead of everybody. Talk to Rick. Your problems and whatever was going on with you is with Rick, not Shane. Rick. Don't talk to the guy who literally freaking assaulted you, man. Like, and yeah, it just pretty much keeps going on and on. I wonder, is anybody still here? I guess not. Well, this is a nice April Fool's stream, and we all got to talk about Lori in some form or fashion. Got to have at least a decent amount of time, but I guess everyone else is just either not used to me streaming today, or maybe he's just doing other stuff. I mean, it's all right. I just wasn't expecting there to be like an absence of people in some regards. But we've been on over an hour and a half, which is longer than I thought I'd make the stream. So, yeah, that's pretty much my retrospective on Lori, pretty much redone. And I made the semi-final part to Dale's story, so that's out. And the Dale story is wrapping up this Wednesday. If you guys didn't catch on to that part, um, starting with what if Daryl died instead of Merle on Friday and Saturday for the Q&A. This was just more or less something fun to do for April Fools. I think it was fun, right? Yeah, I definitely think that you both definitely make a better couple than Lemmy Boy. You know, the Lemmeister. That dude, that guy. Um, but I think we all got what we want to say out of the way. So, um, I pretty much think we can wrap it up here, right? I guess you guys are still having that war, huh? I could stay on longer, but this was more or less just something to cover Lori, um, and just have a little bit of a good time because it's April Fools. Why not? Um, but I think we got everything out of the way, so I'm gonna get off here, get back to working on the projects and stuff, and I'll no, you guys are okay. You guys were still here. I'm not gonna get mad at you. Um, but yeah, that's pretty much everything wrapped up there in a nutshell. So I'll see you later. Pretty much got everything I needed to say out of the way.